it out. I just got a chance to play the new Mario Kart World, and it was so much fun. But take a closer look at the Nintendo Switch 2 with the display on. Huge screen. So fun, so crisp, so clean. Oh, it's beautiful.
Hey guys, welcome to Scar Thumb Podcast. It's David. Another beautiful Sunday. Hey, good morning, X-Runner Silver Bishop. Good to see you guys. Guess it's afternoon over there. Good to see you. So, let's start off with, let's get right in the topic. I won't waste your time. So, this called Deeper is Cheaper. Like it said, it's about going deeper into games to find really games that are better and games that are cheaper. It's a win-win. So, social media runs off dopamine. It's pretty obvious. But the other thing is, new things and novel things also trigger dopamine. And those two combine incredibly well when it comes to video game social media. So this was something that was kind of, I guess, I don't know if I want to say controversial, but a lot of people got into an argument over it. So this was, some chick, this is from Craig, posted this, saying there was toxic media and toxic positivity rolled into one. So let's take a look at this.
Check it out. I just got a chance to play the new Mario Kart World, and it was so much fun. But take a closer look at the Nintendo Switch 2 with the display on. Huge screen. So fun, so crisp, so clean.
So fun, so
beautiful.
crisp, so clean.
I cannot wait for June 5th.
Can't wait for June 5th, which is the release date of the Switch 2. Wow, cool. And he's saying this is toxic positivity. I agree with him. Some people disagree and saying, hey, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with this. Which, I mean, if you're not cynical, as cynical as I am, maybe there isn't anything wrong with it. But personally, the fact that she dropped the release date, I mean, the whole thing seems like an ad read to me. Like right at the end, June 5th, Nintendo Switch, like, it's very specific date to drop right at the end. It just seems like an ad read to me. And it's always, and this is kind of the thing that they do. Like, here's, moderately attractive woman. I guess she's been around for a while. Justine, let's give her a platform. Let's be sure to, invite her to the release. She can show it off and say, oh, look how fun, it's crisp, it's clean, it's great. I mean, there's obviously nothing really of value to be gained from this video. No important information unless like you're worried about the crispness of the screen and the Nintendo Switch. Of course, it is kind of interesting that she describes it as fun. And there's like, oh, the game was fun, not the screen, but go off like, no, you clearly said the screen and then say it's fun, crisp, and clean. You didn't specifically mention the game. Sure. Of course, there's like a million simps defending Justine. This is the usual crap that you get from social media. And everyone, wants that sort of dopamine fix. Everyone wants to get the newest thing. And it could be an incredible, a powerful draw to purchase these games. And there's, been a ton of complaining over the past week about the price on the Nintendo Switch 2, the price of the games, everyone wants to kind of be in on it. That is the pull, that peer pressure, and on social media it's even stronger because everyone wants to talk about the newest thing. No one wants to talk about the game that came out 20 years ago, or some indie game that doesn't have a lot of attention. They want to get on the latest. What's the algorithm pushing right in front of your face? If you're not willing to dig deeper than that, then you never get to see what's out there. And I think there is a world of games out there that you can get that are going to be cheaper. They're not going to be $80. They're not going to be $70. They're not going to be anywhere close to that. So let me get into it. This is my Steam replay of 2024. And it shows, the games that I played the most last year in 2024, just to show you that I'm not talking out of my ass here. This is actually what I've been doing. Helldivers 2 was obviously a very popular game. Same thing with Power World. They were trends, but Helldivers was $40. Power World was $30. Lethal Company, again, another popular game. That's $10. So I mean, none of these are like super deep cuts here, but combined total is $80 for all this. So the stuff that I played the most out of the year is a combined total of $80. That's like one Mario Kart, Switch 2 Mario Kart right there. So you could get a year's worth of fun for just well, maybe not exactly a year's worth of fun, but a lot of fun out of these games. If you look here, here's my 2024 Steam chart. I purchased just one game for $70 last year. Just one. And that was Space Marine 2. I mean, look, you got Toho, you got Among Us, you got the Power World Lethal Company Zero Ranger I played for a little bit. I think I already beat that last year. Toho Maki Sai, Secret of Mana is there. That's the remake. I got that cheap. Same thing with Legends of Mana on sale. Gata Blade was fun. That's like a $10 game. John Pachi Resurrection, again, a very cheap game. I didn't play that a ton. Played a little bit of First Descendant. That was the only game I played. I think July I was playing some sort of Switch 2 game. I don't know what it was. But I was playing some other stuff. Or maybe I was playing Zenless Zone Zero back then, which was free to play, quote unquote. We could see a little bit of Sonic Adventure. Trying out some demos. Core Keeper was a lot of fun. That was a $10 game that I got on sale. Very kind of like Valheim, top-down type of stuff. It's, again, cheap, like indie fun right there. And, of course, there's Space Marine right here in September. That came out. Really enjoyed the game. That was the only $70 game I bought. I bought Fires of Rubicon last year. Played a little bit of Monster Hunter World, very little. Shadow of the Ninja Reborn was actually quite good. Yeah, it's a shorter game unless you want to go for the 1cc. But it's a lot of fun. Kind of an older style game. It's basically like a remake from the same people that made the game like 20 plus years ago. A little more Monster Hunter Worlds. Get Race for the Wilds demo. Blue Revolver Double Action had a patch. Played that. Had a lot of fun with it. Again, Toho Maki Sai was really good. I'm really looking forward to the third one. It's beautiful. Some Gunvein in there. I've been trying to actually play some Gunvein recently to get the 1cc on the on Intense. Just a lot of fun. Death Smiles was a great game. You could get that for Death Smiles 2 and 1 and 2. I think you get for like $10 with when it's on sale, or $20 when it's not on sale. And Lethal Company is just a game I played with my friends. If you got a play group, playing with my family. A game like Lethal Company isn't a super, amazing, like in terms of like complex design or anything like that. But what it is just a fun, like party game to play with other people. So it's not like super mechanically challenging. It can be on the higher levels, you need to know how to play. But it's really just a game to have fun with other people. So there's games like that. Same thing with like Helldivers for me. That's like, or even Monster Hunter. That's not a game I particularly enjoy playing a lot by myself, though I have played quite a bit by myself. But, playing with friends is really where it shines. You always stream during my mass time, but I went last night, so I'm finally able to stop by. Hello, Stim Beer. I think I'm pronouncing that right. All right. Good to see you. Good to see you. I go to church later this evening. Drop that robe sheet. Enjoy the title. Yeah, it is. The title is a little bit of a double entendre, which I like. Or like, not double. Is it double entendre? Just like, whatever you want to call it. Man, I miss these good old days when you only had bikini models on TV ads. Yep. They've definitely changed everything. I dropped console play when it became a pain in the ass, so I need to see gameplay. Steam, exactly. Luckily, there's still a lot of. I mean, there's young women. There's a lot of good-looking 20-year-olds out there. Hey, good morning, Deborah. Good morning. So I mean, like I said, this is just stuff that I've been doing myself. So it's when I say this is something that I'm living. I'm not just pulling out of my ass. So let me kind of get into. I'll put a little gameplay footage and get into the other thing. So basically, my strategy, or like I presented a few strategies here that you could go into, have deeper experiences here. So the first one's indie games, which are modern games that tend to be cheaper. They're still being made right now. They tend to have bolder ideas. That not as much presentation if you want like super high polygons, lots of voice acting and motion face capture. If you want celebrity face capture in your video games, you're probably not going to get it in indies. But what you do get is a lot of like great ideas, a lot of like more niche type of gameplay that's challenging, that's not made for mass consumption. So you can have, so if you're like me, a more dedicated video game player, you can get a lot of really good games that challenge you, like on-screen Gunvein here, or the game like this game on screen right now is Star of Providence, which is like rogue-like, combining like some like shmup gameplay with exploring like Zelda type of stuff. It was a fun game. I didn't really get super into it because I'm not a huge roguelike fan, but you got really interesting ideas with some cute, if you really like pixel graphics, which I do, the presentation's awesome, and you got some cute chiptune type of what is it, a chiptune sort of a music, that kind of stuff. It's a lot of fun, just a lot of great stuff. It's modern in a way, but usually modern takes on stuff like this is sort of like a modern take on Mega Man, which hasn't really been made by Capcom now. They're busy making Monster Hunter and Resident Evils and stuff. A 2D style gameplay just isn't being made anymore, really. If it is, very rarely. So not a lot of Mega Man action happening right now, but you can get something similar in a game like Gravity Circuit, which is on screen right now. There's another way to do it beyond indie is to go genre specific, which I've been doing a lot lately with shmups, like shoot 'em ups, the top down shooters. And one of the good things about that is usually if you go genre specific, there's a lot of like dedicated channels to this type of stuff. Like there's quite a few really good shmup channels dedicated to shmups where you can get recommendations on good shmups to play. A lot of people complain, like if you go strictly based on like the tag like bullet hell on Steam, you get a lot of stuff that isn't there, or like shoot 'em up. If you go with that tag, or like even like Steam had a shmup sale, which with a ton of stuff like Enter the Gungeon that isn't a shmup. It aesthetically might look similar to it, but it's not. So you really have to kind of rely on channels, word of mouth, finding enthusiasts that are really into the genre, and then going from there to get recommendations. But it's been very like on screen right here, you see Death Smiles is like a horizontal shmup game, made by Cave. So you could really kind of get into even like shmup developers like Cave and play their games and kind of see how they've evolved through the years and what they've done. You get a kind of like the same way, and maybe like RPG players kind of see the way Square or Enix has sort of evolved over the years. You can kind of see it in shoot 'em ups, developers like Cave, which it can be very rewarding. The sort of deepness of going into genres or developers, I think really can be really fun. You get kind of the similar stuff with Nintendo, which is a lot more mainstream, but you get a similar feeling with stuff when you get into like a specific genre. The other thing, the third strategy is just getting stuff that's on sale. If you go to the Steam sale, or you just looking like word of mouth, or maybe there was a game you thought of getting, wanted to get, looked like fun, but you waited on it. Well, a year later, it's probably going to be 50% off. You could play, you could get Elden Ring for practically half off right now, and that was 2020's big game. So you could play it, enjoy it now without having to play it, paying a lot less money. And a lot of times these games that come out, especially AAA, giving it a year for them to fix all the bugs leaves you with an even better experience. You're playing half off. You're getting a much less buggy experience. It's just fun all around. But just a better way to do it on a lot of ways. I even like Trials of Mana. I was thinking about buying that. If it goes, past 50%, I probably will end up buying it. I've just been, sort of waiting on it. It's a game that I'm not like super excited to play. Like it's not like a must get, but if I can get it, well, for 50% off, then hell yeah, why not? When I played the demo, it just didn't seem like a $60 game. And there's nothing wrong with that. If Nintendo wants to say like, hey, we're going to charge you $80 because that's what we think our game's worth, then, buy the game. If you don't think $80 are worth it, don't buy it. Wait until you can get it, used for half off or and some sort of sale for half off. Not that Nintendo games ever go on sale, but you know what I'm saying. You should end up paying, what you think the game's worth and not what they say what the game's worth. And the last one, with a big caveat, is retro games. A big caveat being trying to collect physical games is just insane. I don't know what happened with retro games in terms of like what the physical games cost, but after 2020, like everything just went to shit in terms of the price of these retro stuff. So you can't collect physical anymore. But you can emulate. Just freaking use emulators. If they're not going to release it, or if you have Nintendo Switch Online, you can play a lot of like old Nintendo games, or Game Pass if they have that kind of shit. Some sort of official emulator, you could use that, or get unofficial emulators. Who cares? It's not like I'll support like a shoot 'em up or a game I really like if it's available in a like official release. Because I want to obviously encourage developers or people that are remaking it to keep remaking certain type of games. But if it's not available, like the sequel to Mushihime-sama, it was released on Xbox 360. It hasn't got an official release since then. So what are you supposed to do besides emulating it? I'm not going to buy, because these 360 games, especially like games like that, cost a ton. Like you're paying like $100+ for a copy of the Mushihime-sama, like Futari Black. Not to mention the Xbox 360s, which you think would be like $10 now, are pretty expensive too, since like every retro person wants to like hold on to these things. Like they're going to be like some hidden gem that's worth a ton of money sometimes afterwards. Like I don't want to pay that. So why not just emulate at that point? It's the experience. And the other thing I wanted to mention about retro games is people tend to like, there's this bad assumption that, older games have like these old styles of gameplay. But really, like, gameplay doesn't age. How a game's made, like, we didn't necessarily progress as we got newer games. There's certain things that we decided, probably are less fun than, and there was like certain limitations too. But these older games have their own charm. Their decisions, sometimes based on limitations, can still be quite fun. You can appreciate the game for what it is. It's not like necessarily that video games got better. In fact, I think in a lot of ways these newer games have gotten worse as time went on. But that's my own personal opinion on it. Like I said, these games, they've specific challenges. The friction that they put on the player can be very fun and rewarding. And a lot of that doesn't happen today in modern games. Modern games, it's all about not giving friction to the player. It's all about removing the challenge or the friction or the steps that you need to take to get where you're at, because everything needs to be streamlined. You need to be able to find your way. You have to have yellow paint on the ground so you won't get lost. No exploring necessary. We give you this little like hood display with a little waypoint saying, "Hey, go here next. Go here next. Go here next." It's frustrating in a lot of ways. But I mean, going deeper into the games, older games, indie games, just getting games that are on sale. If you want modern games, if you wait a year or two, you can get them far, far cheaper. So you can play more games for less. All these are different ways to sort of mitigate the cost that comes with gaming today. And there's, like I said, nothing wrong with getting it cheaper or where possible emulating it. That's my personal take on it. I mean, it's fun. It's good to support the game releases you like, but I don't see any reason not to enjoy these games, join this art for free if you can. That's the way I see games. I see them as art first and foremost, and they should be enjoyed by as many people as possible. Well, that's my little rant on video games, on deeper is cheaper. Let's see what the chat's going on. Life is great. Good to see you guys are doing well. Job's great. Good to hear. One thing tempted me for the Switch 2 is legal access to Path of Radiance, which keeps crashing by emulator. Yep. I mean, I'm going to buy a Switch 2. I know people have been complaining about the price, but for me, it's going to be worth it. I really enjoy the Switch games, so I'll be buying it day one, which is why I can't really complain too much about the price of a Switch 2 in the games. I mean, sure, I would like it to be cheaper, but if I'm just going to take like no actual real action to punish them for charging that price, then I personally don't feel like I have a right to complain about it. Like, I'm just really all my actions are doing is encouraging them to keep this price for it. If I'm just going to buy it for Path of Radiance for $200 plus, that's what I'm saying. That's a GameCube game, isn't it? Path of Radiance. No, wait, maybe it was a Wii game. It's not that old. Really, it's not old at all. Yet it's like $200. That's insane. But I guess supply and demand. They got to do something. Like, just having these weird like emulations that are like piecemeal released. And I get why Nintendo would do that, because it's just a way to like, hey, here's our new thing. Go buy this, go buy our GameCube emulator. Switch to get Nintendo Online for, whatever it is, like $12 or $20 a month. I forget what the family plan is, but I split that with my family, so yeah, I might buy it at Christmas or something. Yeah, nothing wrong with waiting. You can never see. You can always see it might get cheaper. Might be easier supply. Was 2020? Okay, so it is 20. God, it's 20 years old at this point. Man, that makes me feel old. It's a 20-year-old game. Damn. It's not that old, as I say as it's 20 years old. God, I'm so I always hate when that stuff comes up. Where like, 2025, 2005, huh? That was 20 years ago, huh? Good Lord, where's the time going? Let's I'll get off that topic before I start going to some like old man sort of like back in my day. let's move on. Cheaper. Get off my lawn. There's also just a better way to play my current Switch library. I really like already. Yeah. More power. So, like we were talking about Switch 2. So this has come out. There's been a lot of news about Switch 2 lately. Nintendo president says if you can't afford a Switch 2, you can buy a Switch 1 instead. Great suggestion. We recognize there's some people not able to afford the Switch 2 price point. That's why we wanted to make other Switch platforms available. People weren't happy about that. Hey, if you can't, what do they want them to say? Like, oh, we feel so bad for charging the amount that we set. Darn it. I mean, we wish we could charge less, but we're not, because I mean, no one's going to believe that. If you said, oh, this is the lowest we could ever charge for it. I mean, this is the price they set. This is what they think is going to, the price that people are willing to pay for it. I mean, they know their audience. I don't think they do that. They do this, lightly. But they're figuring that, hey, here's the hardware that's in it. Here's the cost to make it. Here's what we think people are willing to buy the Switch 2 for, and maybe they'll be right, maybe they won't. We'll see. I have a feeling that they 100% will be willing to pay for it. That's my take on it. So, yeah. Okay, if you can't afford it, don't buy it. There's plenty of people that are going to buy it. In fact, at this point, they're probably worried about having enough stock for people to buy it. So are they really going to be too worried whether you can afford it or not? I doubt it. And that's, that sucks for people that can't afford it, but those are the breaks in business, I'm afraid. Switch 2 exclusive games. Oh, so this is an interesting article. It said Nintendo Switch games, exclusive games mitigate the sticker shock because you want to play that content so bad, ex-PlayStation boss says. This was kind of an article from it. And this is, if you have to really switch down. Layden also talked about, this is kind of interesting to see from this gentleman. What was his name? Layden? What is the guy's name? Former boss commented on the price. Had to go pretty far down to find his name. Layden highlighted. Oh, Sean Layden. Okay, there we go. Who used to run PlayStation in the U.S. It's kind of interesting when he talked about it. Layden also talked about the price of video games generally, which he insisted had actually gone down over the years when you take into account inflation. Layden said the console manufacturers should have hiked the price of games by $5 within each new console generation so that they would cost around $90 now. Now, Layden's saying, they should be $90 at this point. Which I don't know. I don't know if I want to pay $90 for a AAA game. In 2025, $60 in 1999 is equivalent to $100. Your purchasing power compared to the cost of living is much smaller now than it was before. But still, companies have been reluctant to push the price up. I was in it at the time. Probably every generation they should have baked in $5 software price hike and make the typical, every generation it's another $5. And you would be up to $90 already now. Oof. So, $90. I mean, I guess that would be a strategy to just $5, make it a little bit easier to say all right, $5 here, $5 there, and just slowly build it up. Yeah, maybe that would be a less of a sticker shock. Of course, they mentioned tariffs due to Trump's tariffs. Oh no! But even Layden thinks that they should be more expensive. So I think this is something that the industry wants. They want higher priced, release games, the $80 and maybe $90 according to Layden for AAA games. So I don't see the price going down anytime soon, unfortunately. Especially with the fact that it used to be. Actually, I don't really. The console was cheaper, and then you made it up with the software. But at the same time, you gotta wonder, if everything's going digital, aren't they making more money off these games than they ever were before? I don't know. So that's the other thing. Like the counterpoint against this, before you used to have the retailer had to get a cut of the money, and 2, you had manufacturing and shipping costs for physical games. Now, so much of it's digital, like that's pure profit. Like if the company has its own storefront, they're not paying anybody. I mean, I guess the developer gets a cut too, but I mean, is it really more expensive for the developers now, or is it getting cheaper for them? I don't know. Something to consider, though. Indie games fix it? Exactly. You can get indie. You can get stuff on sale. Good morning, Jack. Good to see you. Hope you're enjoying your time on vacay. So this was something that I found just completely stupid. So Switch 2's GameCube controller apparently only works on Nintendo Classic app, not other games. So this was going or making the rounds, and this seems like a complete rumor, as you can see from the community note here. It should be noted that other Nintendo Switch Online controllers featured similar disclaimers. This is not proof that the GameCube controller will exclusively function with the NSC application. So like this was VGC repeating it, implying it can't be used for other Switch and Switch 2 titles. This is, Legacy Killa HD, just nonstop L's, which has been on a tear about the Switch 2 and its price. Of course, here is AK here pointing out a similar disclaimer was placed in the UK Direct when they announced the SNES NSO controller, so I don't think this is definitive proof. And obviously, you can use the Super NES controller on other stuff, but the reality is, and the same thing with the GameCube controller, is that they have different amounts of buttons. So, yeah, you could use the Super Nintendo controller on other games. It's just without the correct amount of buttons, it can be very hard to play certain games. So honestly, I wish a lot of games would go back to just 3 buttons. I think 3 buttons was just such a good amount of buttons for a video game. That's just me. That's my own personal rant, but I love 3-button games. Like nowadays, we have freaking 12 buttons. Use your entire keyboard to play like every single game. It's annoying. It's annoying. You got to like hold 5 buttons at a time to like do some actions. It's ridiculous. It's just, these sort of like feature creep that's happening with so much stuff right now. But that's a discussion for another time. For Steam Deck, people bringing up Steam Deck. A new Switch isn't the same breath of fresh air in a post-Steam Deck world. Here's Stealth kind of saying the Steam Deck is not a mass-marketed device. It's a very niche device with limited appeal to a certain subset of gamers. That's not a knock. That's just the way it is. Switch 2 will probably outsell Steam Deck's entire lifetime sales in less than 6 months. And I kind of agree with Stealth here. For the most part. I don't know. I think he's discounting Steam Deck too much, or like the sort of like the Asus ROG, those type of handheld PCs. I think they're just going to get bigger and bigger. And I don't think there'll be a competition for the Switch 2. But if Nintendo keeps going down the sort of like handheld console market, the sort of, now we don't have a handheld and a home console, like it's just combined into one. If they keep going down that line, I think these handheld consoles are just going to get bigger and bigger. That's my own opinion on it. I don't see that market share getting smaller, especially as more and more developers like Xbox and Sony focus more on like same day PC releases. If they kind of stay within the bounds that these Steam Decks or these handheld PCs can play, I could definitely see them being a contender. I think Nintendo's biggest competitor right now is the Steam Deck, not the PlayStation or the Xbox. Use it for. I like the deck. We'll probably get it. Use it for Wii U and That's always the funny part is where people using the Steam Deck to emulate the Switch. Uh-oh. If it can work, if it can play it, then see Nintendo spearhead the trend rather than completely dominate and stamp. Oh yeah, I mean the Nintendo's always been its own thing. There's always space, especially when it comes to a lot of like smaller titles, indie titles. And PC just has that sort of flexibility that consoles never quite get. And this is another thing that was been trending. I mean, Nintendo's been getting a lot of hate recently. Can confirm that the Welcome Tour was $9.99 and is a digital only product. They got crazy that they're charging $10 for a tech demo. Looks pretty cool, but it is strange to see. We'll see how it does. Like I said, I could see this being a Switch Online tie-in, like a few months down the line. Like, hey, you could get it free with the Nintendo Switch Online subscription. How fun. This was an interesting topic, or an interesting video I came across this week, just sort of clicking on stuff, listening to random podcast. This was from Questing Beast, talking to D&D lead designer, explain how 5e fell apart. This is a guy called, I believe he's called Mark Merrills. Oops. Let's see. Mark. I believe it's Merrills. He's the designer. He used to be the lead designer of 5e, one of the lead designers. So here he is talking. Oopsie. Close my window there for a second. So this is him talking about D&D 5e. I think he brings up some really interesting things that kind of parallel some of the issues that are happening in video games. I always like seeing parallels in different creative fields. That I think it kind of shows just an overall truth of what's happening with the
experts.
With the stuff.
They know the stuff inside and out.
Hold on a second. I think I didn't.
Role-playing games, the users are experts. They know the stuff inside and out. They know exactly what they want, and they have very specific needs. And if you miss even just by a little, they just don't have any use for your project, for your product. Maybe like 20 years ago that wasn't the case, but nowadays there's so much stuff out there that you can find what you want. And so the decision maker has to be very close to the user. You've got to know that user inside and out, and you've got to have like telemetry, like constantly seeing what's changing. And what I think happened was, because D&D is owned by Hasbro, it's a giant corporation, that as D&D became more important at Hasbro, that distance increased. And now it's like, okay, who's deciding what happens with D&D? Probably someone who doesn't play the TTRPG, probably someone who's looking at a spreadsheet, probably someone who's looking at like digital, like, oh, what's the traffic like at D&D Beyond?
And this is such a trend in video games too, where again it's a lot of guys making decisions are people looking at spreadsheets, people looking at player analytics. There's no like art left into it. The artists aren't the ones making these creative decisions. It's a guy looking at a spreadsheet and trying to say like, hey, how can we get more subscriptions to Ubisoft Plus? How can we increase the user playtime sessions, by an extra, 5 minutes, because that translates to, 2% more likely that they'll buy DLC if they play for, a 30-minute session instead of a 20-minute session, or who knows, whatever. These are the people making the creative decisions, not actual artists, not actual game designers. And this is something like D&D is having the same exact issue.
Are more people coming or less people coming? More people are coming. The business is doing well. Like things like that.
No, that's so that they mentioned that to begin with. And though this part here, this is what I found really interesting and a huge admission, I think, from one of the lead designers of D&D. And this is this is something that's affecting everyone at Wizards of the Coast right now. And really, every creative field.
I also think that there is this real fear of the audience, in that when you do story stuff, especially in today's climate, you run the risk of someone looking at it and going, hey, I don't like that. And I don't like it on a political level. Like, I don't like what it's saying about the world. I don't like what it might be saying about me.
This is just an insane admission. And what's even more insane is that people definitely think that way. They'll be playing a fantasy game and say like, oh, I don't like what this, orcs. I don't like what orcs say about me or orcs say about the world. That's crazy. It's absolutely crazy to take orcs and say like, oh, they remind me of black people. So we can't have racial determinism for certain, fantasy races. We can't say, orcs are evil, like drow are inherently evil, because that might imply that races in real life are inherently evil, which I think a lot of them have no problem implying that white people are evil, but that remains to be seen.
I think there was just this kind of maybe fear of like, well, what if we try to have something that's really interesting and bold? Do we really want to risk that? No, let's just erase it all. But I get, it's almost like it's like I said, I think there was like a real sense of like, well, we don't really know what the audience wants, and we don't want the audience to get upset. So what if we just said nothing? And so then I think if you're in that mode of like, okay, lore and story is kind of maybe radioactive, then what's your other option? Like, then you have to go with system, right? Like you literally like have said, there's two things we can offer, immersive world building or like mechanical refinement. Well, we've already decided that no to world, so we're gonna just do mechanics. And so like, what else do you change, right? And and I think that's kind of the biggest miss, like I said, looking back, especially Baldur's Gate 3, I think people would have been excited to see like a fresh take on orcs that had a lot more meat. Role playing.
So, and then this is just it's crazy to me. Well, I guess it's not too crazy because this is reality. But you have this guy admitting straight up that they were afraid of their audience. They were afraid to make something like new or bold, related to the world, related to the story, because you had that sort of sword of Damocles. That is, I guess, if we want to go with wokeness as a shorthand term, you have this sort of the sword of Damocles of wokeness sort of hanging over them. So if they made like a bold decision, like here's orc culture, here's drow culture, the evil race, quote unquote cultures, that might be sort of like antagonistic to, the normal like sort of player base. If they, made that happen, there's so many constraints, there's so many worries about how someone's going to misinterpret that they don't want to do it. It's not worth it. Like when you're putting hundreds of hours into making a new edition with the idea that maybe, hey, one wrong move means, all this work could get cut by Wizards of the Coast who just erased an entire plane of existence, Kaladesh from Magic the Gathering because some, advisor, some sort of like consultant just told him like, oh, Kali means black in a language, and it could have a bad implication to it. So we'll just get rid of Kaladesh. We'll rename it to something else. So that's the kind of stuff they do. So at that point, like, what's even the point? What's even the point of trying to make something bold and new? And it's really easy to look at wokeness and say, like, when you see like a woman that's like super ugly, super unfeminine, or like a black guy just sort of inserted really ham-fistedly, or some sort of race or gender swap into something, and say oh, that sucks. But what you don't see, because it's a lot harder to prove, is the amount that artists need to hold back when they're making these worlds and these world building decisions. The creative decisions that they don't make, because it's almost impossible to prove that that's happening. It's just like, you just get this sense like a lot of this stuff seems a lot more boring than it used to be. It seems a lot less interesting, and it is, because like all you get is this like morally gray slop nowadays, because no one's really to have like a really strong vision of what these races are. I think that's why so many people, especially in like the right, have sort of gravitated toward like Frieren, the anime, to the Journey's End, where demons are just straight up evil. There's no, and that they make a point of like the fact that human beings are so tolerant and they sort of seem like humans, so they have like empathy for the demons, but that empathy is never returned to them by demons. They just use that empathy to prey on them. Is something that's strikes people as true, because that's how evil is. It's like very manipulative, and it uses your goodness against you. Your sort of mercy and sympathy against you. And it's a powerful message, and it's something that you'll never see from like left-wing creatives or like leftist creatives like this guy. I mean, this guy himself is a leftist, but he's sort of lamenting the fact that learning about racial determinism has sort of like completely constricted all of their creative decisions. But he's part of it. He's part of the problem. He goes along with it. And now he's like, this is such a miss. Of course, I think at this point he's not working with Wizards of the Coast anymore. He's doing his own thing on Patreon. But of course, this was a clip from The Questing Beast. If you want to see the whole thing, I thought it was he's gotten very fat. Since if you've seen some of the older pictures, he's definitely gained some weight. I don't know if the COVID times was bad for him, but yeah, Saigonomy is definitely on point. Just like his general tics and stuff are annoying, but if you want to watch the whole thing, I thought it was kind of interesting to like hear it out. He mentioned some other stuff, like the monster manual got rid of like all humanoid monsters because they don't want to like show like a certain humanoid race being evil. So you just get generic stuff like pirate and pirate, thief, that kind of stuff. They just leave that to you to make it. So rather than game designers actually designing a world and a game, it's just like, here's some stuff, go make your own stuff. That way we don't have to worry about whether or not you'll find something offensive. It's insane. This isn't what creative people are supposed to do. They're supposed to like give you these bold creative worlds and then let you, that really, jog your imagination, and then you play off that stuff. That's why people are buying your product for like $50 a book. But these guys, again, they're hamstrung. Creativity just isn't working in this leftist environment anymore. It's just become too much. And it's very sad. And this is I think the real cost of wokeness that you get, more than Yasuke and like any of that other stuff, or ugly chicks in games, which sucks. But one of the real cost is the fact that creative people can't make decisions, or they're second guessing themselves, or they're worrying about the 20 different groups, which one of these one will find this sort of offensiveness. And of course, he also mentions that they end up just over-engineering the combat rules, because what else can they do? That's like the only like non-offensive stance they can take. Let's just over-engineer combat rules and make them really like bogged down, because we have to justify the new product. And we can't do anything story-wise or creatively or in that sort of creative avenue. So let's over-engineer our rule sets. It's really interesting. Really interesting take to see it coming from again like a guy that is clearly left wing. Even he at this point is lamenting just how constricted everything feels. Of course, they won't do anything about it, because they gotta make sure they stay in good. Like they're just prisoners at this point, complaining about the food. This was crazy. BAFTA. I keep seeing BAFTA, and the more I see from BAFTA, the more I think that might be the absolute worst gaming awards. So this is, I think BAFTA is like some sort of British thing, British like film awards that are like getting into games, and they are the worst of the worst. And even like Joshua Woolens, who's a humongous leftist, is making fun of this list, because this was their most influential of all time. They clear Semu, a game that came out 2 months ago, more influential than Tetris. and expect us all to go along with that. So this was their list. It's insane. And this kind of shows you just how bad video game awards are and just video game media are. So number 1 is Shenmue, which I'm sure I never played Shenmue. I'm sure it's a great game. Nowhere in hell does it deserve a place on this list at all. Doom, sure. Doom, one of the first-person shooters, definitely a huge part of that genre. Super Mario Brothers, yeah. Obviously a very big game for the Nintendo, the NES, which sort of like saved console video games after the Atari failed. Half-Life. Half-Life did a lot of interesting stuff for first-person shooters in terms of like the storytelling and those events. I don't think it deserves number 4, but it's hard. At least you could make an argument. Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, I think that's way too high up. I don't know if it even deserves to be on the list, to be honest. It's a great game. It was definitely a big part. Like Super Mario 64, I think definitely deserves it because it made sort of like 3D platformers what they are. It was a big conversion from 2D platformers. A lot of like Super Mario Brothers 3 deserves to be on this list, to be honest, somewhere, because it sort of like set the pace it really like set the tone of what a 2D platformer is. It was just so influential for what 2D platformers are. And then Half-Life 2 does not deserve to be on this list in terms of like influential games. It was a great game, but not very influential. Sims, maybe. Although I would say like SimCity was probably a bigger influence than The Sims. Tetris, yeah. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 came out a few days ago, or a few months ago. That's moronic. This just makes this list. I don't know what the qualifications for it were, but having this on your list just means your list is insane. Yeah, no StarCraft. Yeah, absolutely. No StarCraft. They don't have Warcraft on here either. They have World of Warcraft, which, yeah, for an MMO, I think it definitely, probably not for the better, but it definitely was a huge influence on MMOs. Pong, sure. That's like one of the first games ever, so yeah, why not? Tomb Raider does not deserve to be on this list. Tetris, absolutely. I'll give it to Minecraft, of course. Yes, I think Minecraft is hugely influential in video games. It's had like probably like the game that has the longest longevity. And also in terms of what it's done for like YouTube, gaming on YouTube and stuff. Minecraft definitely deserves to be there. Metal Gear Solid, sure. I think a lot of the stuff like Kojima did with like storytelling and stuff. Again, probably not for the better, if you ask me. Border Gate 3 does not deserve to be on this list. It came out like 2 years ago, a year or two ago. What was it influencing? Nothing. Final Fantasy 7? I don't know. Yeah, I guess it did do stuff with like, again, sort of like cutscenes and that kind of stuff. That sort of, it kind of shifted. Again, probably not for the better. Shifted, RPGs to more of that, cutscene storytelling type of stuff from the older style of Final Fantasies. But why not have like Final Fantasy there instead of Final Fantasy 7? The one that sort of like really kind of set the genre going. Dark Souls. Souls-like became a thing. Wouldn't Demon Souls be a better pick for this? Because it sort of like was the first one. But, at least I could kind of understand, Souls-like became a thing. Grand Theft Auto 3 was one of like the first like sandbox open world games. So I could definitely see that. Skyrim, I think, was a big enough game that deserves it. I don't know about Grand Theft Auto. It was the first part of the series, but if you look at Grand Theft Auto versus Grand Theft Auto 3, I think Grand Theft Auto 3 had a bigger impact on video games than I probably wouldn't have Grand Theft Auto there. But the list is insane. The list is absolutely insane. Yeah, no RTSs on it whatsoever. No arcade games on it whatsoever. Yeah, Ultima and Wizardry instead of Final Fantasy. Yeah, you could even go back, that far. And that's the thing that really annoys me about a lot of video game journalism nowadays, or these awards is that they don't get people that are historians in video games that can like kind of dig back deeper and to see what the influences on like, you know, what influenced Super Mario Brothers. You know, Miyamoto didn't pull it out of his ass and just like, here's a great game. Miyamoto didn't pull Legend of Zelda out of his ass. Like they say like cave, like he did like a cave game. You know, he was like walking around in caves and he came up for it. But you can look and see there are newer games that look very similar to Zelda. I don't think the article does say what the criteria was, but BAFTA is just so bad. There's the next article I've gone into here is where they give evolving game to Vampire Survivors. And they even gave the 2023 Game of the Year to Vampire Survivors. Now look, Vampire Survivors is a fun game. I've played it and I've enjoyed it, but it does not deserve Game of the Year. It doesn't deserve any award for video games. It is basically like a step above Cookie Clicker in terms of game design, where like you just have these enemies that sort of like track on you and come at you, and basically, you know, just you have to like get these XPs. It's just progression. It's just like a progression system that's very addictive. That you get, you know, oh, I got a new treasure chest and it opens up, and then you have to like make sure you get leveling up. These like survivor type games are not, they don't deserve Game of the Year. They don't deserve any of that crap because it's just they're just not that complicated. Again, they can be very fun and addictive to play, and I've enjoyed some survivor type games like, you know, 20 Minutes to Midnight, but they don't have very complex enemy designs. Yeah, it's a bigger number. Yeah, exactly. It's like a progression game, like Balatro. You know, they're very addictive to play. They can be very fun. You know, if you just want something to sort of like kill time. I've got nothing against Vampire Survivors or Balatro, but the praise that they get kind of annoys me because, again, they're not complex in terms of game design. They're not pushing game design forward. And in fact, they're kind of like part of this general trend where game design is like, how addictive can we make this? Like, how can we keep you playing and like suck you into playing these games? Because, you know, that's just become, we know what good game design is. It's not, you know, challenging you. It's not giving you, you know, complex systems or like these challenges to sort of figure out, you know, pushing you into, you know, to playing better. It's all like these, how can we trigger, you know, give you some dopamine spikes to keep you playing the game for, you know, 30 to 60 minutes. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to see that there's awards like BAFTA that just seem insane. It's just insane to give Vampire Survivors any award. Like, again, enjoy it for what it is, but to act like it's something important or something good in terms of a video game design is crazy. Just like this list. It's like, most influential games? Yeah, sure. A game that came out 2 months ago. Why not put it on the list? It's so great. It's insane. This is not a serious award show in the least. Like, real game awards is better. It's far better than BAFTA. I'll give it to Craig. They've never awarded Vampire Survivors an award, so I'll give them the edge on that. Oh God, this. Hold on, I'm gonna take a drink while before I go to this. You can just ruminate on this Smash Sisters picture while I wet my whistle. See how many real women you can count in this picture right now. So this is a all women's event here. All women's, air quotes as hard as I can. How many real women do you spot? I don't know. I don't know if there's any of them. But people were clowning on this for this, all female event. Clearly, there might be a real woman somewhere in here. but it is almost entirely men with long hair. And I mean, this is what, and I don't even care about, like, a lot of people are getting mad at like the Troon thing. To me, I don't really care all that much. What it does show, though, is just how bad women are. Like, people want to include women in these gaming spaces, but look at this. Look at how much they defend their own space with this. Like, this is supposed to be an all-women's event, and there's not a, like, almost, I don't know if there's a single real woman in this event. It's insane. Why is everyone wearing that's, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's to cover their face. Maybe it's, you know, I mean, let's be honest, Silver Bishop. Maybe they're trying to cover, it makes them look more of a real woman at this point. I don't know. You know, I mean, there might be more of a fashion statement rather than a COVID thing at this point, I think. You know, maybe you don't have to wear lipstick, you know, if you got the if you got the mask on. I don't know. But it just shows, like, men have got to form fraternal groups at this point. They want, like, people are mad about the whole hacks thing and, you know, how he got treated. If you don't form fraternal groups, male-only organizations, this is what's going to happen every time. This is what you get. This is the end game of male-only, or, you know, mixed groups, is now you have men saying they're women and just crowding out. Because, I mean, let's be honest. It's always been, video games are always going to be a male-dominated space. And now it's really just, now males are dominating the women's space as well. Women, like, fought and destroyed the scene to get in, and now men are pushing them out. Now it's just, you know, men pretending to be women and pushing them out even further. Not that, like, a lot of women just don't even care. Again, they care more about making sure that people aren't offended. They'll lose their entire scene just to make sure that they don't appear, you know, like bigots. That they don't appear that they're going against this sort of like group mentality. They don't want to rock the boat, so they'll accept this instead of, you know, fighting for a spot. Do women really care about competition if this is a thing? I don't think so. That's my take on it. And of course, so people, if you're a fellow community member, I implore you to use your voice and support community efforts such as Smash Sisters. And I love this, gaily to build a more inclusive scene for everyone. The sad stuff I'm reading in these days for people who seem solely interested in tearing this hard work down. Yeah, most people think this is weird. And this is the sad thing for guys nowadays. Like, if you find this weird, somehow you're on the fringe of society. If you look at this and you're disgusted by it, like, you don't want to be around. Like, look at the guy in the, I don't want to make fun of these people, but look at the guy in the middle, like, back. Look at some of these people. I don't want to be around them. They look creepy. I don't want to be in a scene with this kind of stuff. And somehow you're supposed to believe that you're on the fringe here for thinking that. It's nuts. This is truly nuts. Like I said, men have got to form their own groups. And that way, none of this shit ever takes place. If you could get a big enough group of men, they can run your own events. Maybe even, you know, invite people from the outside while you're hosting their events, but say, like, hey, we're not going to have any of this shit. We're not going to have any of these, like, gay events, gaily. We're not going to include, you know, a side, women in non-binary event. There's not going to be any of that crap at our events. That's the only way I see moving forward for male spaces, male gaming spaces. And this is just a reason why. God, this was apparently, like, this has always been. I even fell for it too. Steam has added a coming soon label to Hollow Knight Silk Song. I guess this tag has been present for at least a year. So Dextro, not a great source for video game knowledge. They're trying to fool me. They're fooling me here. I'm looking for more news. I keep seeing it. This was one of the last. Actually, I'm going to skip this. This just shows, like, women. I guess there was, you know, this game No Mercy, which had, you know, some stuff that women didn't like in it. Some grape. We did it. The game is gone globally from Steam. It just shows how censorious women are. And then you have, one Eurogamer, this woman, Victoria Kenny, working to get it removed. Just look how these things talk about this game. Let me take this quote. Let's see. Where is this woman's quote? It's just the... That's a lot of cars. Where is this ladies? Oh, here we go. So this is this woman, this CEO of Women in Games. This shows just how much women like art. Dr. Marie Claire Eisman said the organization was appalled by recent reports surrounding a Steam game, which encourages players to become every woman's worst nightmare and never take no for an answer. Said the availability of the game on Steam is utterly unacceptable. It sends a clear and disturbing message that violence against women is not only tolerable, but playable. That message has no place in our industry, our communities, our society. So these are, again, take stuff that's pretty much in a lot of women's fiction. I don't like to admit that, but like, hey, no, this is no place. If men want to have their fantasies, sexual fantasies, that is unacceptable. If you want to have a game, this is obviously an 18+ game, which sort of plays off certain sexual fantasies. And even like the person said, I think the company owner said, I fully understand that for many people, these things may be disgusting, but during sex, people should really do what they want as long as they don't harm anyone. As Ergin wrote in a statement on the Steam that's blocked in the UK. After reading the statement, if you still believe that such a game should not have been created, then we sincerely apologize to you. At the same time, we would like to be a bit more open to human fetishes that don't harm anyone, even though they may seem disgusting for you. I mean, this is like a normal sort of like liberal argument for the existence of this game. I mean, you could say this is right or wrong, but clearly this is something that a lot of women push in the game. But then it's so weird how like the rules can apply to women for certain things, but not to men. Suddenly when male sexuality is involved in something that males may enjoy, or if it's enjoyable from a male perspective. You can have 50 Shades of Grey. You could have all these weird, sort of like, again, kind of grapey novels being made for women. But all of a sudden, it's something made for men from like a male sexuality lens. All of a sudden, it's the worst thing ever. It's no, utterly acceptable, no place. Again, fantasy is somehow reality to these people, which just strikes me as crazy. Finally, I've been putting this off, so I really need to get to it. But this is the sort of game of the week. This is Chrono Trigger. Just an absolute beautiful game. It was widely hailed as one of the greatest games ever made. It's just one of the standards for the RPG format. I first played this during what I kind of call the golden age of video games. And I think it varies for every person, but it's sort of that time when between the time when you can like read and the sort of time you kind of like become a teenager and start to get like angsty and jaded. The games you play during that time are just end up having a special place in your heart. And, this is just one of the best made of the 16-bit RPG era. It, by today's standards, you might look at it and say, the graphics are kind of low res. The chiptune, the sort of music is compressed. If you look at it by today's standards, maybe you're not immediately impressed by it. But the art is just amazing for what it was back in the day. I think it still holds up, in my opinion, because you have it. It's abstract enough that you have to kind of use your imagination with these drawings, to sort of fill in the blanks. I think that makes the art more engaging than specifically having everything just like high res. You can see everything. You can see the pores in people's faces. Just too much detail is, too much. The way they express things, what they have to show off kind of shows you like what's important. And the animations themselves, I think, are phenomenal because they have to like make sure everything has to count when you have, you know, such small disk space. So this was a rare collaboration. At the time, Square and Enix were two different companies. So you had the creator of Final Fantasy, the creator of Dragon Quest, along with Akira Toriyama, you know, rest in peace, creator of Dragon Ball. You had Nobu Utsumu, who was the guy that did a lot of the I probably mispronounced his name, but he did a lot of the Final Fantasy music. So you just had so many people, like this talent combined together to make a game that you just never saw it again. Of course, Square ended up and Enix ended up merging, so there wasn't really anything like super, you know, it wasn't like crazy, like, whoa, I can't believe these two titans of RPGs are combining. At the time, it was a big deal. And the combat itself, I think, is actually really good. They have like this active battle system. It's, you know, not specifically turn-based. So when you're going in, you know, messing with the menus, you're actually, you know, giving the enemy an opportunity to attack. So it makes attacking better if you just hit A and then attack. It kind of gives you a balance between that and using these sort of like powerful like tech moves, or, you know, going in using items. At one point, I had to actually organize my items so they'd be like the best healing item was like right at the top, so I wouldn't waste time. It's, you know, that's an important part of actually, you know, being successful in the game, because you don't want to be like, oh, I'm trying to get my tech off, you know, right? They had those dual tech moves or triple tech moves. So as you're waiting for like everyone's bar to fill up, you have to, you might like get like hit 2 or 3 times. So it gives a, you know, a real trade-off to what you have to, so to what you're doing in combat, which I think made it a lot more interesting than just, you know, a normal turn-based a game. And I think a lot of the goodness of the game is actually some of the limitations. When I looked at the scenes in these games, they never seem to like lag for too long. They're really short. And I was like kind of amazed at going back and playing it again after so many years. Like, a lot of these scenes just go by really quick. And it's, I think, one of the things that just comes from the fact that you don't have any voice acting. You don't have any cutscenes. There's just not a lot of stuff they could have done besides, you know, plain text and some animation. So that limitation like kept them from going overboard with the game. I think that's one of the issues in the modern RPGs that I don't like, is just how long they take. Most of this game could be beaten in 20 hours easy, probably quite a bit less if you just want to go straight to it. But I tried to do like all of the side missions at the end, which some are crap and some are good. But overall, I wasn't super impressed by some of the end missions. But even doing all that only took 20 hours, as opposed to like some of these things that could be like 80 hours if you do all the side missions, which is it's just too much to me. So it's like, I thought, you know, I outgrew RPGs, but I think RPGs might have sort of outgrown me, as you got more access to these sort of how do you say, all the cutscenes and the voice acting and all this like presentation. It just became like a movie, which ironically one of the reasons why Square sort of broke up from Nintendo is because Nintendo decided to go with cartridges for the N64 instead of going with discs. And they really wanted, the Final Fantasy creators, like from Squaresoft, really wanted discs so they could fit more stuff on it. Of course, you remember Final Fantasy VII, which is kind of like hailed as a masterpiece, had that like giant 3-disc game. So they just like went all the way out on that kind of stuff. They went probably overboard on what they could fit into it. It was a very good game, to be fair, but I think at this point, you know, it ends up being access. I haven't played an RPG in a while, so that criticism might be unfair, since I don't know what's out there, but it was a lot. But I mean, it just still holds up. It's still a fantastic game. And I don't think it's all nostalgia and like my love for Super Nintendo. I think it's genuinely just a really fun RPG that's not super long. It doesn't completely outstay its welcome. And then like you got, again right here, I'm gonna like hit him with a sweet flame whirl. these combined attacks where I kill them all in one hit. That's awesome. Chrono Trigger, just an awesome game. And that's it's my game of the week. So you can get it on Steam for, I got it on Steam for like $10 or maybe $5 if it's on sale, but it's just a lot of fun. It's a fun, really fun game. I don't know if they'll ever remake this game. I kind of hope. In some ways, I hope they don't because, man, I don't know if they're ever going to be able to like really do it justice. Maybe if they win they have like the Dragon Quest 3D HD. Final Fantasy 8 at 4 discs? Oh my god. How's it going, Nuke? Good to see you. 4 discs. I mean, it's just nuts. Of course, now like storage space isn't an issue. You can make just these giant mess of games. But the fact that they could do so much in such a small package, I think it helps it overall. Limitations on creative people can sometimes be a very good thing. It gives them sort of like guardrails to sort of play in, and they really sort of strip off, what isn't needed. Some of these stuff, like, man, going back and looking at this stuff, it's impossible to really express how cool this was back when it first came out for younger people that never experienced, the Super Nintendo in its heyday. Well, this stuff was just insane. Like a scene like that was just crazy with Magnus' Castle. That's amazing. But that's it for the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Just so many good experiences. I loved it. But we can let's see. I'll just let this play, and then we can go and let's see. Do we have a place to redirect? Or we could redirecting to post 0 here. Let me see if I can find it. I know. Are we doing post 0? Here we go. The most important question you have to ask yourself. All right. Sounds like an interesting topic. So that'll be happening at 11. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys, or this stream. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't. And I'll see you next week. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful Sunday, and we'll see you later.